So I've got a 2 Series here, sorry, not a 2 Series, an X2, and it's got, as you can see, an issue with powertrain light coming on. I've no idea whether this is going to be an interesting fault or not, but I thought I'll video it because I don't get many of these X2s, and they're quite rare actually, they're still quite a rare car. So because I don't get many in, and it's a powertrain fault, it's probably an evergreen topic, I thought it might be a good video to make. So it's done 213,000 kilometres, quite a lot really, isn't it? And the year model is 2018. I'm guessing, before I plug any tools in, I'm going to put Ister on right now, that it's got an air mass fault. Usually that's the issue with these B47 diesels. Just carboned up intake, EGR fault, something like that. It's failed its catcher's dust, that's the Finnish equivalent of the MOT on the emissions because it's got a check engine light on. Let's get into it, see what's wrong with it. I'm being a bit cheeky here. Before I even read the fault codes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just have a quick look myself, just to satisfy my curiosity. There's a lot of things can go wrong with these. So what can go wrong? Well, there's lots of things. We need to check this as well. This is a low pressure fuel system sort of sensor, and they do get a lot of diesel leaking in there. I'm only doing it only because it's common, and I would like to save the customer's wiring harness if it is leaking, because it could be leaking. What am I going to do? Well, what I'm going to do is, it's a bit of a pain in the bum to get to, but I'm just going to essentially take out this sensor, boost pressure sensor, because with all of these cars, there's two things that go wrong with the air mass. The swirl flap axle falls off on the older manifolds, and you get too low air mass because it sucks the flap shut. Or you just get lots of carbon building up in here, or leaking AGR or plugging this. So if we've got oil and gummy soot, it's usually coolant leaking from EGR cooler. If we just have dry but lots of soot, then it's just breathing very badly. Usually you get a bit of greasy oil in there because it's blowing past the piston rings and the crankcase pressure's a bit high. Not breathing so great. Worn rings, you know, because it's old. It's done quite nearly 300,000 kilometres before you know it, this. So without further ado, let's just pull that out. Have a quick look at this now, this swirl axle. It does look like it's got the modified one because it's got this flap. So it looks like at some point they've actually changed that because it has this shield on. Now we can actually do all them tests in Ister, but before we do that, let's just have a quick look at that. It gives us an overall state of assessment for the health of the engine. And it's much easier then to get an idea of what we're dealing with. Then we'll read the fault codes, we'll check that as well. The only reason I'm actually doing this is only because of in the past I've had this happen so many times. If it's had a new manifold, that might be a different story. No, it's not that bad. It's a little bit sooted. You know, I've seen them a lot worse than that, to be honest. That's kind of quite reasonable. It's not bad, it's not blocked, it's just sooty. And you'll notice that what we have a lot of the times on these, we do get quite a lot of this sooty carbon building up, but it's kind of like not that bad. But there, can you see how it's wet? It's actually wet, is that? That's not a good sign. That usually means you've had leaking antifreeze. They change the cool, but they don't bother cleaning manifold out. We can get the camera in there though, but it's very wet and very oily in there, and that's not always good, is it? Right, let's just pull that connector off now, off that fuel line, and check it. So like I said, I'm doing a favour for the customer. They've not asked for this, but if we've got a leak here and then it comes back in 3 months with knackered wiring harness, it's going to be a big job to do that. It might not be leaking, and in this case, oh, maybe it's leaking a little bit. Or is it not? No, it's not leaking that. Usually, as you've seen on my other videos, they're soaking wet when they leak. Let's have a quick look inside it. No, luckily we haven't got a leaking low pressure sensor. That's fantastic news. So I'm happy. I don't have to worry about that. That's one thing less to worry about. So what you're looking at there, you're looking at the swirl flap there essentially. Inside, obviously you have swirl flaps in these engines, and we're looking just at a particular swirl flap. And to be quite fair with this inlet manifold, it's not as bad as what we think really. It's a little dry, but it's not as, it's a bit sooty, a bit wet, but it's not horrendous. But crucially, the valves, the swirl flaps, sorry, like the little valve discs, they're fully open, which is fantastic, isn't it? Because what we don't want is we don't want that axle shaft to be in a situation where it's, you know, closed and restricting the air mass. So without further ado, let's now look at the fault codes. We've had a little preliminary and everything looks quite reasonable. So when we look at this, there's lots of fault codes, but none of them really matter. What does matter is this one. The metering line is faulty, it's disconnected, First of all, the power was too low. Now it's disconnected and it's saying that there's an internal fault on the metering line heater on the low side. So what we're going to have to do with that is simply just check the resistance of it and condemn the SCR feed line. So we're going to go with a fluke today, and the reason we're going to go with a fluke is I actually attached this very handy, very powerful neodymium magnet to it a long time ago. It's crazy strong. You can literally hang it under the car, and that for me is much easier when I'm measuring at blue lines. So the blue SCR tank, active tank, is here, and you can just see the module there. That's like the bit that does all the measuring of the fluid and the pump, the recirculation pump, the feed pump, etc. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take this panel off, and then we're going to get my young mate here, who's a bit of a cool dude, young trainee, who's a very good lad, Thomas. He's going to do the measurements and I'll video him, so it'll make a change someone else doing it. So let's get into it. That's just spinning that. That's just spinning on the thread, plastic. That's not good. So we've got one nut that won't come out because it's just spinning inside the tank. That's going to be a little bit of a problem. We'll have to just bend it down because that ain't coming off. In the memory of man. It happens sometimes. Right, so we need the heater. It's all full of mud. But there's the pipe. It's only plastic, this. I'm going to go and get a bungee cord on to pull that down, otherwise it's going to be in the way. So you get this lovely bungee cord on the brake caliper. There we go. Right, that'll just keep that out the way now and work without stressing. Now then, here's what we need to measure. So we're going to have to disconnect it. We've got to now separate this from here, like that. This is all falling apart. What can you do? We're going to change this line anyway. It's not easy to get these separated, unfortunately. It's absolutely full of mud. Look at the state of it. Right, we're going to make some adapters now, and we're going to actually end up measuring the resistance. Right, young man, I'll steady it. What have we got? We've got not a really nice value there. What is it? Mega ohm, kilo ohm. Oh, it's huge. 60 kilo ohms I make it, something like that. Yeah, okay, that's goose. So literally, young Thomas has now diagnosed that in literally 2 minutes. Obviously, that wiring is part of the SCR line. That's the feed line that squirts the fluid down it under pressure. Now this I'm going to assess. I've never done one before. It's going up there like that. I'm going to assess, is it going to be difficult or not? Well, you've got a lot of stuff. It's 4-wheel drive Haldex system at the back. We're going to have to, it is going to be a big job, because obviously you've got this line is going here. It's going all the way up into the subframe there. This is a huge job potentially. And this is really unusual car, because actually, usually they do run down the same side as the tank, but it seems on this side, instead of it being there, it's ended up there. So maybe it's going to be running down this way. We need to check, but there's so much stuff crammed. Yeah, there it is. So it's basically up there. You can just about see the corrugation there. So it's basically even more difficult than I thought. It's going to go here, all the way above the differential. It's a nightmare of a job. It's going to go all the way down. You can just see the corrugation and that cavity space there as well. So it's going to literally be an even bigger job. Usually it's just down one side, but this is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be very expensive. So we enjoyed that. Got a little favour to ask. If you'd please subscribe, that'd be great, because if you do that, it helps the channel grow. And if you've not watched it to the end, go back and watch it to the end, because YouTube's algorithm works by how much people watch the video from point one to the end, so start to finish. If you finish it after 5 minutes, unfortunately, I end up like it doesn't promote the video, and YouTube will you can only grow if it pushes your video. I'm not famous, am I? Not yet. So essentially, it'll only grow if YouTube's pushing it, and it'll only push it if loads of likes, loads of comments, good engagement, good watch time, all that business. Forget all these tags and all that helps a bit, but really, if you like the video, let me know you like it by watching it. Go and make your dinner, go and make a cup of tea, and then come back watching it if you're that bored, but let it run at least. I do that with all my videos. Thanks very much. I've got so much content, but I've no time to do any of it, but I'm trying my best. Thanks for your support so far.